Okay, so now let's look at what is meant by the phrase energy flow. Okay, so when we talk about energy flow, we're looking at the niche, right? Since we defined a niche as a specific role that an organism play in the ecosystem. Now, we're looking at you discovered some organisms are eaten by other organisms, right? And those organisms, there are some other organisms that depend on them, all right? So you discover that from one organism to the next, there is energy being transferred to the next organism, and this is what we call the energy flow. Like for example, us as human beings will get, say for example, a guava, okay, and the guava is produced by a plant. Okay, so we're getting energy from a guava. Okay, so that's a process of, say, respiration, of course. Okay, so looking at respiration itself, we're releasing energy, which is a catabolic process. Right, so the energy that you get from a guava is used by us human beings, and at some point you get eaten. Say you're not lucky enough, you get eaten by a lion. A lion will get some energy from you and use it itself. And then a lion, if it's not lucky enough, it dies, then the energy is going to be used by some other organisms, of course, what we call decomposers. Now, that was just a brief introduction to this one. And then we're going to say the principal source of energy in the solar system is the sun, and energy from the sun is what is called the solar energy. So even before a guava plant produces a guava itself that human beings are going to consume, you discover it begins by when it reaches a stage where it can produce fruits. So it traps light, okay, by a process called the photosynthesis. Now photosynthesis, we should understand to say it's an anabolic process. Right, so it's an anabolic process. So it gets energy and builds up something big. Right, and that's what we are getting and eat. So photosynthesis is a process by which green plants, of course, make food from sun in solar energy. So the principal source of energy is the sun, and the energy from the sun is called the solar energy. Now you will discover that the solar energy is captured by green plants by a process called photosynthesis, and it's converted to chemical energy. Okay, chemical energy in terms of food, which living organisms are able to use. So when you get a guava, the energy in a guava is in form of chemical energy. Now the question is, why are plants called producers? Why are plants called producers in terms of the energy flow? So the plants are called producers because of their capacity or the capability. Okay, so because of their capability to make food for other living organisms. Okay, so looking at its potential, the plant has the potential to get energy from the sun, and then produces food in form of chemical energy that other living organisms are able to use. So that's why it's called the producer. Okay, then we continue and look at the animals that will feed on the plants are called the primary consumers, because they're the first guys to consume the energy from that has been made by the plants. All right. In other terms, primary consumers are also called herbivores, in the sense that they only eat or depend on green plants or plants alone. Okay, and those that feed on herbivores or primary consumers are called secondary consumers, while those that feed on secondary consumers are said to be tertiary consumers. Now, it is critical to understand to say the energy flow from the sun is non-cyclic. What does it mean? So, the energy will come from the sun and goes to the producer, from the producer to the primary consumer, but then energy is never returned to the sun. So why is it non-cyclic? Energy is never returned. Energy is never returned to the sun. Energy is never returned to the sun. Right, so that's why this process is non-cyclic. Right, so looking at now, we can understand one point, and we can talk about the energy flow chain. So looking at the energy flow chain, you discover that this is how it's going to look. So this is just an illustration, diagrammatic illustration of the energy flow chain. Okay, so energy will come from the sun. Okay, and this is a chain, so it goes to the producers, which is a plant at this stage. Producers, and then goes to the primary consumer, right? Then it goes to the secondary consumer, and finally it comes to the tertiary consumer. Okay, so this is it, the diagram that illustrates the flow of energy in the food chain or energy flow chain diagram. Okay, so if you are asked to write the energy flow diagram, you know you're just supposed to begin with the first niche. In this case is the sun. So this is the first thing that is a primary source or principal source of energy. So given energy now is transferred from the sun, the producers, from the producers to the primary consumers to the secondary consumers, and then to the tertiary consumers. Okay, so now in terms of education, if you were to put this in terms of education, you understand to say this is like a parent, okay, principal source of energy. This is like a parent, then you go to kindergarten, then primary school, then secondary school, and then this is now at your college level. So it's in those stages. Okay, so this is very easy for us to understand. Okay.